What's up, everybody? Going to go back through my models again today. Got the NBA coming first. Here's what the model likes, the leans and everything. I will let you know where the model may not be seeing trades or just other things that have happened recently, where I may have disagreements with the model, just to try to help you out a little bit more. I will have the recap on the next slide, and after that I will go through each game by game. So if you are interested in my opinion on what the model is seeing, stick around, or you can skip ahead to whatever game that you're looking for. After that, I do have NHL. This is the last day of NHL before the Olympics start, so a couple weeks off of NHL, and then I got college basketball at the end. A few more games today, so we'll get going on the recap next. All right, so yesterday we had 5 of the spreads of the 7 games that were played were at least within the range or that hit. The ones within range, depending on what time you would have made the bet. Sometimes it was on the New York side, sometimes it was on the Denver side. I will say on that game it was 108 at the end of regulation time, so it was under at the end of 48 minutes, and Denver had the correct score predicted for them. Just single overtime, double overtime, pushed all of those to the wrong side for us. On the totals, 4 of the 7 were within range or hit. 2 of those were within range, so it would have depended on what time you made it or if you had moved the spread or not. So we'll go in, we'll start getting into these games for today. Okay, so first game is Washington and Detroit. Early in the week, it was a little closer on Washington. That was because they had that little bit of a, we'll call it a hot streak for Washington. They won a couple games in a row when Chris Middleton came back. And then they've traded away a lot of their players. The whole Anthony Davis for Chris Middleton, plus everybody else involved in that trade. From that trade, D'Angelo Russell and Hardy are both questionable, and then Trey Johnson is still out for the Wizards as well. For Detroit, Dennis Jenkins is out, and then Kevin Huerter, Cade Cunningham, and Tobias Harris are all questionable. So Cade and Harris both look like they will probably play. Huerter hasn't played with them yet. He just came over from the Bulls, so not sure how that'll even impact. Jenkins plays enough off the bench, but he's not a high impact player. So Detroit did win the previous matchup 137 to 135. That went into overtime at home for Detroit, and that was back on November 10th. So quite a while ago, a lot of things have changed. Detroit has definitely improved. Washington, I would not expect them to hang around. Day 4, it started to grow, went up to 8 points on the spread, went up to 14 yesterday and down to 13 today. Vegas does have it at around 14 to 17, and they've had it around 227 to 231 on the total. So low end of the total, leaning towards the underside for this game and from the model. And then on the spread side, it is leaning Washington spread. I agree with the underside. I just don't think Washington's going to score a lot of points. I wouldn't expect Detroit to try to run up the score. They don't do that too often. So 230 is not a score that I'd be too worried about. I do like the under on this. The spread is where I just don't know. Like I said, Detroit doesn't run up the score a lot. So can they cover that? Absolutely. Do I love it? Not really. I do think they'll win. I think if you want to buy them down, even to around that day 4 line of 8 points and maybe bump the score up and take the under, combine them together, probably get a good line. But I'm more on the underside here. I think Detroit's defense obviously is much better. They have a 116, almost 117 offensive rating and a 105 defensive rating. So they score. They don't give up a lot of points, but they only really score if they have to. Washington on the other side, 109 recent offensive rating, 116 defensive rating. So their defensive rating matches up with Detroit's offensive rating. I would expect Detroit to be pretty average. Washington, their bad offensive rating is still not as low as Detroit's really good defensive rating. I would expect them to score less points, especially with all of the trades that happened and everything. So like I said, I'm leaning under on this. That's going to be my favorite pick. The other side, I don't expect a super high total, obviously, since I'm taking the under. And I just don't expect Detroit to try to run it up much. I think they'll play a lot of reserves later in the game. And I think they'll just kind of try to dribble it out towards the end. Our next game will be Brooklyn going to Orlando. Not a whole lot of injury information or even trade information on this one. Cam Thomas is out. That was the only name I saw that hadn't been a regular like Franz Wagner. But Brooklyn is 7-18 on the road. They're 1-9 in their last 10, 1-4 in their last 5. Orlando's 14-8 at home, 4-6 in their last 10, 2-3 in their last 5. They won the last matchup 104-103 in Brooklyn on the 7th of January. That was an overtime game. Model today likes Orlando to win about 113 to about 105, so it has about an 8-point spread. Vegas has it at 10.5 to 11.5. So Vegas is on the Orlando side over what my model even has at an 8-point spread. Brooklyn obviously has been getting blown out a lot. That's part of the reason the higher spread, because Orlando hasn't really been great since they went to Europe. They've been better the last few games for sure, but they had a real rough stretch there for a while. The total's super low, 213 to 215. So on the model, sitting at about 218. So it is on the overside on that. It is on the Brooklyn side of the spread. The spread hasn't been moving a whole lot. Started at 9. It did dip down to about 5 on day 3, but it stayed about 7 and 8 all week long for Orlando. So it's confident Orlando is going to win. I would probably look a little lower than what that line is. I don't think I would want to take Brooklyn on the spread, but I just don't know that Orlando can cover that. As far as the total goes, it's going to depend on if Brooklyn can score both teams, honestly, if they can score the ball. Brooklyn's offensive rating really bad, 103.6 recently, with a really bad defensive rating, 120.9. In the NBA, bad defensive ratings tend to be the worst thing to have, from what I've noticed, because everybody can score. It just depends on how good the defense is against them. Orlando's about 108 on their offensive rating. They're 117 on their defensive rating. So they have a slightly better defensive rating. They have a slightly better offensive rating, but neither team is that good on offense right now. Neither team is that good on defense right now. So, tricky game for me. I think I like the over. The model has been over all week long, but it has been trending back down towards that line. If Michael Porter Jr. somehow ends up on the injury list, I would probably take the under because they struggle a lot more without him. But I just think this is a game where both teams can end up scoring, and you only need like a 108 to 107 score to hit that over, or a 110 to 105 or whatever. So don't need big numbers, and I think these teams can probably get there. And I don't, like I said, that's way too big of a spread. I don't know how much you can buy that down and still find a reasonable line on Orlando. But I'm not taking Brooklyn. Don't trust them at all. I just don't trust Orlando with a double-digit spread very much. So over is my play on this. Even if you could buy that down a few points, maybe buy Orlando down a few points, or push it up a few points on the total, and buy Orlando down a few points. Put those together, you might end up with something decent, but not one of my favorite games today. All right, next game is going to be Utah and Atlanta. We do have some trade information on this one. Triple J is not going to play for Utah, just got traded from Memphis. Keontae George is not going to play for Utah. And for Atlanta, no one from the Porzingis trade. Heel, Kuminga, they're both out. Okongwu is going to be out as well. And then Jock Landale, just coming over from Memphis, is questionable, so they could get a boost to their interior if he plays. Atlanta did win the previous matchup, 132 to 122 in Utah back in November on the 13th, so quite a while ago, but it was a double-digit win. The model likes Atlanta 120 to 116. Vegas likes Atlanta by about 10. The model likes about 236 on the total, and Vegas likes it a little higher at 239 to 243-ish. So with all of the injury information from Utah, and Porzingis not playing, they still have marketing. If once Triple J gets in there, I think that's really going to help them out, especially on the defensive side. But as far as tonight's game goes, even with Healed Kuminga not playing, Okongwu out, Atlanta's been a much better team recently. I think that they can easily probably cover this spread, but that doesn't mean they're going to. They're a super streaky team. So when they're getting their shots and they're getting them to fall, they can put up a lot of points quick. When they're not falling, then they can struggle. A team like this, I would expect them to struggle and stay in the game right there. I don't expect them to fall behind. I would expect them to win this game. The double digit is just more of if their shots are falling. If Alexander Walker is getting his threes to fall, if Jalen Johnson is scoring, Dyson Daniel is going to have to be protecting the ball. Utah has been getting beat pretty bad by a lot of teams. They are 6-8 on the road, 2-8 in their last 10. They're only 1-4 in their last 5. Atlanta's 9-14 at home, 5-5 in their last 10, 3-2 in their last 5. But the offensive ratings are pretty similar. Utah 110, Atlanta 109. So Utah actually has a slightly better offensive rating, but a lot of that is Keontae George, and he will not be playing today. Utah's defensive rating is significantly worse, up there at about 120, about 5.5 points higher than Atlanta. So if Atlanta can score, their offensive rating, if they were not so streaky, would be much higher. But the streakiness drops them back down. So if they can score, and on a defense like this, I would expect them to, then they should easily win this game, especially without Keontae George. I don't think Lauri Markkanen is going to be able to hold him in this game. And I don't honestly know who else they traded away off the top of my head. I know they got rid of a few players, so I would be on Atlanta. I would probably buy them down a few points to about 7, I think is where I would like them at. I do think the model has it underpredicted. I think it will be better than what the model has with all of the trades and injuries, but I don't feel super confident on that 10-point mark. I also kind of like the under on this game, as bad as it might be. Definitely not a confident pick on that, but the model's been under with the players that are out. Teams are going to be a little thrown off with the changes that have been made. Obviously, that'll affect Utah way more than Atlanta, but I don't think Atlanta's going to have to push as much. I don't see Utah. I don't know. I'm leaning under. I'm taking Atlanta on the spread just a little bit marginalized. I'm not going to actually play the under, just my favorite. All right, next game going to be Chicago and Toronto. Toronto is on day 2 of a back-to-back. There is no head-to-head data on this one. Chicago just traded away most of their team. So the model likes Toronto 116 to 115. A lot of that stuff is not going to be factored in there. It's still looking at Chicago as the Chicago team. That'll start to factor itself out over the next few games, and these new teams will start to take place in the model. So some of these teams that are heavier on the trades, especially trades out, do not trust them near as much as teams that have remained steady. Vegas does have the line at about 9 to 10 for Toronto, has the total at about 227 to 229. Model likes Toronto, like I said, to win by 1, and has the total at about 231. It's going to be interesting to see how Chicago plays. They traded away quite a few people. A lot of what they got in return is showing questionable. Simon, Sexton, Ivy, Dosunmu. Dosunmu was already there, but he is questionable. Giddey is out, it said today. So a lot of injuries on top of the trades. I think Toronto should be able to cover this even on day 2 of a back-to-back. Seems like a pretty solid matchup. The model was a little confused early in the week. Did grow stronger towards Toronto, dipped back down, but I really think that the changes in Chicago are going to be the big story here. Chicago's offensive rating was really good about a week and a half ago. It's been dropping down. I would expect it to drop down more till this team finds a little bit of cohesion with the new players. Defensively, they've been pretty bad all year. 116 on the defensive rating, so they've been giving up points. This should be a game where Toronto is able to score, to keep it moving. I would expect them to get a first half lead and probably just coast most of the game. I just don't expect it to be, even on day 2 of a back-to-back, could be wrong. I just don't think it's going to be a big issue for them. I think they are the better team, especially when they're healthy, which they appear to be healthy today. I did not see anybody really on their injury list that hadn't been there. Chicago is 9-16 on the road, 5-5 in their last 10. They're only 1-4 in their last 5. They won 1 out of the 3 back-to-back games against Miami. Toronto's 14-12 at home. They do play better at home. They are 5-5 in their last 10. They're 2-3 in their last 5. So they haven't been playing great, but they should be the better team here. I might take it down a few points still. I do think I like the under better than I like the over on this game, even though the model is over. I just don't think Chicago is going to be scoring a lot of points. To get to that 227, 229, you're looking at like a 117, 110 game. I just don't see it. I think Chicago is going to struggle. They still have some players. Bezelis could go out there and have a really good game, keep them in it, things like that. But in fact, to be honest, Bezelis is probably a good prop pick today because he's the most consistent player that is left on that team. So if you're looking for a prop, you might take him. If you want to take something on Chicago, honestly, you're probably better off taking Barnes, Barrett, Ingram, something like that on the Toronto side. So I'm Toronto spread side, probably a few points under that, but I do think they have a really good chance of covering. And then I would be on the underside just on the fact that I'm fading Chicago's offense. Even though they've been pretty good this year and their defense has been what's been struggling, I just don't see them being good for about a week or so, and then maybe they'll start to be putting something together. They have some good shooters that they got out of the trades, but they lost a lot of size, and I don't think they're going to be too competitive the rest of the year. All right, this should be a pretty good matchup here. We got Charlotte going to Houston. Houston plays better at home. Model does have Charlotte predicted to win about 110, 111 to 109. Vegas did have the line at about 3 to 4 point favorites for Houston, had the total at about 218 to 220. So the spread is within, or the total is within the range of what it's been in Vegas so far, right there in that 219 range. But it is flip side on who it thinks it's going to win, and it's been pretty consistent all week long, as you can see from that chart. Does not ever cross to the other side, keeps a relatively decent gap in between. Not a huge gap, but it does think Charlotte's going to win, and the fact that they are given 3 to 4 points right now on the spread seems like a pretty good place to go for me. Charlotte's offense and defense have been playing much better. Their offensive rating is 116. Their defensive rating is 106 recently. So they are better on the offensive side and the defensive side of the ball than Houston has been in recent games. Houston is at 111 and 108. So about 2.5 points on the defensive side favors Charlotte, and about 5.5 points on the offensive side favors Charlotte. Big gaps. So Houston has been playing pretty well. They do play better at home. They're 17 and 5 at home, 7 and 3 in their last 10, 3 and 2 in their last 5. Charlotte, on the other hand, is 12 and 15 on the road. That part doesn't look good, but they are 8 and 10 in their last 10, or 8 and 2 in their last 10, and they have won 7 straight games. So it looked like all of their trade information was questionable. Mike Conley, Kobe White, Tyus Jones all looked questionable. I didn't see anything for Houston. Houston did play last night. They had a very emotional game last night where Şengün got kicked out. Amen Thompson was in foul trouble early, and they ended up losing. So their last 3 back-to-backs, all in the month of January. Houston has lost game 1, and they have won game 2 of those. They lost game 1 the first time to OKC. They beat Minnesota the next night. They lost game 1 to Philly on the 22nd. They beat Detroit the next night. They lost to San Antonio on the 28th. They beat Atlanta the very next night. So they have been doing better on back-and-backs. So they lost to Boston last night. Maybe they end up beating Charlotte tonight. They've been beating decent teams after losing to a good team on all of these back-to-backs. So obviously Vegas likes Houston. Charlotte's shooting is where it's going to be. If this Houston defense can stifle the three-pointers from Charlotte, which is going to be very hard because all they have to do is make an extra pass and they have another guy that can shoot a three-pointer. Charlotte's offense has been really good. Brandon Miller's been on fire. Con Knipple has been really good. LaMelo Ball's been picking it back up, and he's been staying healthy recently. This Charlotte team looks extremely good to me. I do like them to cover the spread. I think they have a really good chance of winning this game. Like I said, Houston's been winning on the second day of back-to-backs. Houston is a good team. Definitely a lot of risk taking them on the money line, but it might be one where you want to take them on the spread and then put a little bit on the money line if you think they can do it. Get a little bit better odds on one of them and have one that you hope is just going to cover that second bet. But yeah, this should be a really good game. Two offenses, well, one offense that has been really good, and then two defenses that have been really good. The other offense is hit or miss. There's times where they can get going, and then there's games like last night where they just do not look good. So I'm on the Charlotte side, especially on the spread. Total side, I know both defenses have been playing really well, but I think this is a game where the offenses will take it over 220. I just think that's way too low. I would imagine it being closer to the 225 area or something. I would imagine the offenses are going to play a little bit better. There's some really good talent on these teams, and that's the way I would be leaning. I would be leaning Charlotte. I would be leaning over. Charlotte I actually like on this spread. That's one of my favorite picks for the day. I think They've been playing really good, and I think they're still being a little underestimated just because of how heavily they rely on their three and how risky that can be. All right, next game, San Antonio going to Dallas, second day of a back-to-back. They beat OKC last night. OKC reserves without Hartenstein, Holmgren, SGA. So today they got Dallas. Dallas is on a 5-game losing streak. Some of those games were against decent teams, not too bad of losses, but they did trade away AD, a couple other players. So they have some new players coming in, but Middleton, Bagley do show questionable, along with Brandon Williams and Daniel Gadford. Harper and Sochan both missed last night, still show out. I don't know if that's going to be a for sure for tonight or if they just haven't updated it. On day 2 of a back-to-back, I would not be surprised to see them sit Wemby or something like that to try to give him a little more rest, especially against a team that they should be able to beat. I think they should be able to cover this spread, especially with the changes, just different locker room environment and everything. A couple role players gone. I do like San Antonio to cover this. They're 15-10 on the road. They're 7-3 in their last 10, 3-2 in their last 5. They did win opening night by 32 points, 125-92. That was in Dallas as well, but like I said, opening night, that was a long time ago. Dallas is 14-15 at home, 4-6 in their last 10. Like I said, they've lost 5 straight, so they are struggling right now. They did lose some people, trade some people. I would imagine it's going to take them a minute or two to get going. They do still have Flag. They do still have Marshall. They do still have some pieces there to keep it going. But I would have thought San Antonio would have been a little higher of a spread. I'm thinking they might expect someone also to sit out, or they're just expecting day 2 of a back-to-back to affect San Antonio a little bit more than I would expect it to. But especially if it ends up down around that 5-point mark, I really like San Antonio to cover the spread. I don't have faith in Dallas to cover this, not until I see how things are going to work themselves out. San Antonio does have the better offensive rating. They have the better defensive rating recently. 3 points better on the offense, 5 points better on the defense. So they've been pretty good. The model's most consistent has been the total. It has been between about 230 and 235 all week. So all of that is above the over. I'm just thinking day 2 of a back-to-back. Decent San Antonio defense. Questionable Dallas offense now. I'm not sure exactly how they will gel. I would lean the under a little bit with Vegas. I think it will probably come in right around where it's sitting at right now, possibly a little over, possibly a little under. I would feel way more confident going on the San Antonio side of this. All right, we got Golden State going to Phoenix. Model has Phoenix predicted 117.5 to 112. So it's giving them about 5.5 points. Vegas has it at about 7 points on the spread. So pretty close. The total is at about 230 from the model. It's only at about 217 to 220 from Vegas. A lot of that has to do with the injuries. Golden State will be without Curry again tonight. He is a big part of that offense, and their defense isn't very great. Their offense doesn't look as good without him. Obviously, they also traded away Hield. Kuminga wasn't really playing, so not a big issue. Porzingis is out. That was who they got for the trade. So Curry and Porzingis out. On the other side, Phoenix is going to be without Booker and Green. That will obviously also likely affect their scoring. But Phoenix lost 2 of the 3 games. They lost both away games, 118 to 107 back in early November on the 4th. They split a back-to-back. Phoenix won at home 99-98. Golden State won at home 119-116. So the games have been pretty close other than that first one a long time ago. The teams are obviously a little different right now. Golden State's 10-15 on the road. They are worse on the road, 5-10 in their last 10, 2-3 in their last 5. They finally started to fall off a little bit, especially with Curry going out. Phoenix is 17-7 at home, better at home. 7-3 in their last 10. They are 4-1 in their last 5. They had that one game where they just weren't hitting threes. A lot of the other games, Dylan Brooks has been on fire. Gillespie, Grayson Allen, all of them have been playing pretty well. The one thing they are just missing is that Booker or Green sort of player that is out. They do need a good point guard in there, but against a depleted Golden State team that traded away players, has their star player out, I like Phoenix in this game. The questionable part of this is definitely that they're shooting. They're 3-point. They're a very streaky team, a lot like Atlanta, When it's falling, they can put up a lot of points. They can put some distance in there. Once they go cold, teams can close that gap, or if there is no gap, they can pull ahead. So Phoenix is going to need their shot to be falling. They do play better at home, like I said, so that is a benefit for them. Offensive rating, Golden State recently still better, but they had a lot of really high scoring games there once Butler went out. That's going to start to drop back down. As you can see from the chart, it's already dropping down. They got up to about 117. They're already down to 112 in a matter of 4 days. 3 days, actually, 3 more days. So dropping that point that much, the model is not super confident in their score. If you look at Phoenix, they're about 116 to 118, 2-point margin all week long. Way more confidence in that. And it was above Golden State most of the week. It is growing. The spread has grown from 0.3 to 5.6 in just 2 days. I'm going with Phoenix. I think their shots will be falling. I don't think Golden State is going to be playing excellent defense. I don't think that's their style right now. I do think Phoenix, maybe even go with the Phoenix team total, might be a good way to go if you don't think they can cover that spread. And if you don't think the money line is good enough odds, I do think Phoenix will be scoring. I don't think Golden State's defense will be stopping them. And once they get rolling, they're a hard team to stop. So Phoenix on the spread is probably my favorite. Or honestly, the total is probably my favorite. Going on the over is probably my favorite just because I think Phoenix will have a better chance to get there. And it's not that Golden State doesn't have players that can score. They still have some shooters there that can put up. Moody's there. They still got Pajemski. They're going to score, but that defense side is definitely going to struggle. And against a team like Phoenix, I could see this one going higher. So I like the over, and then I do like Phoenix on the spread side. All right, last NBA game before we get into the NHL and college. We got Philly going to LA. Model likes Philly to win 115 to 112. So a 3-point margin. Philly likes it at about the model likes it about 229 on the total. Vegas likes it about 232 to 234, a little higher. So the model is on the Philly spread side, even the money line side, and it is on the underside. Embiid is showing as questionable, so if he does not go, that's going to be a big factor for this Philly team. I don't think I would really want to play the game without knowing that information, unless maybe you want to try to do some sort of LA props or maxi props or something. But even maxi props, he does much better with Embiid in there. He gets a lot more assists with him in there, and then some of his shots get opened up more. So maybe LA side, I didn't see much on their injury list, nothing at all really that was new. That could change throughout the day as they update it, but Philly's 14-8 on the road, 7-3 in their last 10, and they have won 5 straight games, even with everything they got going on with Paul George and all of that. The Lakers are 12-8 at home. They are 6-4 in their last 10. They are 3-2 in their last 5. So the last 5 games for the Lakers, though, if you go back and you look, they've had a double-digit win, followed by a double-digit loss, followed by a double-digit win, followed by a double-digit loss, followed by a double-digit win. So are they going to have a double-digit loss today? Probably not. But that's a very, very weird trend to have. And I'm surprised it hasn't been confusing the model more. It seems like what it's been doing is just lowering that total. It thinks that the Lakers, it's not sure that they're going to score. It's kind of putting their score more in the middle as opposed to putting it where I think it probably will be, which is a little bit higher today. Philly and LA both have a 114 defensive rating. Those aren't good. So the over, I can definitely understand why Vegas has it higher. I do think Embiid is going to be a big part of this. And then just making sure Doncic is good to go and all of that. I know sometimes he hits the injury list late, but LA's offense, most games has been clicking. Philly doesn't have a lockdown defense. So this seems more like who can score more points sort of game to me. If you look at the offensive ratings, you got Philly at 119, LA at 116, both top tier offenses, both below average defenses. This seems like a points game to me. The model's not reflecting that, but a lot of that, like I said, is just LA is completely inconsistent. If they were more consistent, I think it may have them favored, or at least being at home, I would expect them to be favored or like 1 point or less probably, just based on the way I've seen these teams play, but it's just the inconsistency. It's not the talent level, it's who's going to show up on this floor today. So LA is better at home. They are 12-8 at home. That is where it is. Philly does have the George situation, Embiid questionable. So wait on that information, on that injury information. If Embiid goes out, I'm probably leaning LA. I would imagine the spread's going to end up reflecting that a little bit more. If he goes, I do think I would take Philly on the spread here. I think it's a little risky against this LA offense that can put up tons of points really fast. Especially like Doncic 2 games ago had a triple double in the first half. So if he could do something like that again, he doesn't even have to score all the points. He can dish it out. He gets a lot of rebounds. This is a game, like I said, wait on Embiid. The total probably looks like the best bet to me. I think there's a better chance that both teams score and go over that total than either team really blowing out either of the other teams. But the potential is there, especially on the LA side. If the three ball starts falling for them and not for Philly, then things could probably get pretty ugly there at the Staples Center. So wait on the injury information. If Embiid goes, I like Philly. Like I said, total, buy it down a little bit maybe, and I think that's probably your safest bet at this point of the day until you get that Embiid information. All right, we got 7 hockey games today. Last 7 hockey games for about 2.5 weeks, other than watching the Olympics. So the model does like Vegas. Vegas is on the second day of a back-to-back. They played Vancouver last night, and they did win that game. Vancouver hasn't been very good, but still second day of a back-to-back, a little bit more tired legs. LA also second day of a back-to-back. They lost to Seattle last night. So both teams played late. It'll be another late game. It is on the West Coast. Model likes Vegas very highly. Vegas typically plays better at home. So, at least historically, the model has liked them at about half a point, and it did go up to a full point on this game. So, trending very heavily towards Vegas on the model. On the Tampa one, it's fluctuated a little bit more. It still has it at a high confidence. I would imagine some of that is just because of the fact that Florida played yesterday. Florida went to overtime and won in Boston. Tampa did not play, so Tampa does have a really good defense. I think it would be a high confidence game. I'm just surprised it's having it because of how it's factored in. But Tampa has gone down. They went from 0.7 to 0.2, and then they've drifted back up 0.3, 0.4, 0.7 again. So they're back where they started, but they had a big dip on day 3. My guess is day 3, a lot of that is because of how many goals they gave up to Boston in that outdoor game. They gave up 5 goals, so it was probably thinking they might give up a few more to Florida. And then in the games recent, they're like, nope, Florida's not going to score as much. Tampa's going to win. So I like the Tampa pick. The Vegas one, Vegas hasn't been as good for me this year, but they've been looking better recently. I could see that. Washington, Nashville, I think is a true toss-up. I like Washington. The talent level is there. I like Nashville. The talent level is there. Both teams have underperformed significantly this year, in my personal opinion. So that, to me, seems like one that could be a 1-goal game. Maybe Washington's played a lot of close games. Nashville struggled to score at times. So maybe you take the underdog at plus 1.5 might be a good option at there. I'm not really sure. I haven't dug into these games. Just briefly looked over some things. So then we got Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has been really hot recently. Buffalo was hot. Buffalo started trending off a little bit. It is an away game for Pittsburgh, but I still do think that they will win this game. Not sure who's favored. If Pittsburgh isn't favored, you might take them at plus 1.5. Give yourself a little leeway. If Buffalo isn't favored, if Pittsburgh is favored, I still think I would take Pittsburgh on the money line over Buffalo plus 1.5 just because of recent play. Pittsburgh has been really hot, and even a lot of the games they've lost have gone into overtime to where you're only going to lose by 1 anyway. So next game, Carolina, New York. I don't understand that one. I'm Carolina all the way. New York just has underimpressed all year long. Carolina's definitely the better team there. Next one, New Jersey Islanders. Islanders have been pretty good this year. The Devils have been a little bit better recently. I think I'd probably go Islanders or just take a plus 1.5 in this game. I think it should end up pretty close. Ottawa, Philly. I would go Ottawa. Neither team's been great. Philly's goaltending at times has been absolutely awful, and then other times they've been decent. I would lean on Ottawa. If they aren't favored, if they are the underdog on the road, I would take them plus 1.5. I think they'll at least keep it close. So let's get into some college games now. Okay, we have a few pages of college basketball games today. They are ordered from highest confidence to lowest confidence, as always. Highest confidence pick is Michigan at Penn State. It likes Michigan by about 17-18. I do believe the line may have been even higher when I saw that. Penn State played Michigan really, really tough at home. I think it was a 2-point win. I think Penn State, if I remember right, shot a 3 to try to win it at the end of the game, but the guy forgot how much time was on the clock and had to rush it. So Penn State almost won at home, but Penn State has also only won one game in the Big Ten. So I think that was a little bit more of Michigan being underprepared than it was of showing that Penn State can win, because Penn State just has not been good. If you look at some of their last games, the last game they won was the only, or the last game they played was the only game they won. They won by 2 against Minnesota, the team that just beat Michigan State last night. But they lost by 21 to Northwestern. They lost by 6 to Ohio State. They lost by 27 to Wisconsin. They lost by 23 to Maryland. So they have not been very good. A lot of double-digit losses after that Michigan game. This one, to me, with the spread as high as it is, I'm not going to touch it. Penn State showed that they can keep it within range. They've shown in a couple games that they can keep it within that range. At Purdue, they only lost by 8. Michigan has shown they can beat people by 30 points. They've shown that they can let teams stick with them. So I'm not super confident on a huge spread like this. Not in that game. Some of the other ones there, Utah Valley, UC Irvine, Central Connecticut, UC San Diego, all the way down to UMBC will be all of the high confidence picks. That is just the highest confidence picks from the model for today. So the ones that, out of just today's games, the ones it likes the best. If you look at yesterday's picks or whatever, the same number does not translate day to day. So all of those in the high confidence, for the most part, are double-digit spreads. I don't know what Vegas has them at, but the model likes them all to win by double digits. Once you get into the medium, it is going to start getting into single-digit spreads, about 5 to 10 points. These should all be games that are staying relatively stable or increasing towards the team to win, like Long Island State there. 77 medium confidence, but they did start out at a 6-point spread, and it did go to a 10-point spread. So the model grew on how much it was favoring them by 4 points. So it's liking them a lot more. If you can find that spread, if it is in the single digits, it looks like it may be a good one to take. Perhaps if you can find a good money line or a 2-point, 3-point spread and some parlay options or something, could be good also. Now let's get into the next page. So this page will finish out the medium and get into the low confidence ones. Like I've said before, low confidence doesn't mean it won't happen. It just means one of two things for the most part. Either it can see the game going either way, or it's not getting a clean read on the teams. Some of that can be some of these smaller conferences going up in conference to play a better team and then going back down. Those 20-point wins versus 20-point losses. It's trying to figure out where the level of competition versus just a bad game versus are they better at home or away. Tries to factor out all of that stuff and then output this model to be as good as it can for all of these teams. So some teams it will read better, some teams are more consistent, and then other teams that just seem to get these random upsets periodically, it's just not going to get a good read on those teams. So I try to go with bigger conferences. We got Ohio State and Maryland down there. It's like, Ohio State by the 3 to 5 point range. And then some of these others, like I said, not saying they won't happen. St. Peter's, Manhattan, Vermont, Maine. These are games that you want to dig into a little bit more. You want to make sure that the data that you see actually backs up the pick the model sees. Make sure that you're not getting one of these tricky games where it's getting a team that's been super inconsistent and it's getting some noise that is saying this team's going to win this game based on just one random game that they had that was an outlier and complete luck for them or something like that. So check the size of the spread, check who's going to win, try to find the most consistent ones, and then verify the information on your own. And these will be the last games for college for today. These are the lowest confidence picks down the bottom, as you can see. Low confidence because it actually picked Utah Tech, but it had them favored by 2, by 1, and now it has it as a push. So not sure who's going to win. It liked Utah Tech much more a couple days ago than it does today. Not much more, by a couple points, but it's trending towards UT Arlington. It is not sticking on UT Tech. It still picked them because they had the bigger spreads and they were there more days. That's a loose way to look at it, but it's trending towards UT Arlington because it does have it as a push now. So if you have any questions, if you want me to look at a certain game for you or anything like that, just leave the game in the comment. Let me know if you're looking at a certain line, if you're looking at spread, total, anything like that, player props. Let me know. I should be here today at my computer. I should be able to see it in time. If you give me a comment early enough, I'd be more than happy to help out. Make sure you're doing your own research. Don't just blindly trust the model, but there are a lot of good picks in here. So if you take some, good luck.